Hi, and welcome to Noble Character Crafts. My name is Amy, and I'm coming to you from eastern Nebraska, where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Friday, April 26th, 2024. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you really enjoy this episode. This is a channel all about my crafty life, and today I have knitting and crocheting to share with you all. I will have links to the places that you can find me in the description box below, as well as the show notes for this episode. I am hosting a year-long make-along on Instagram called the Make 9 2024 Mal, and that is for you to join in the Make 9 challenge, where you can choose 9 projects that you would like to work on this year. Post a grid of those projects to Instagram with the hashtag Make 9 2024 Mal, and then anytime that you post a picture of one of your works in progress from your board or one of your finished objects, you can also include that hashtag to enter your projects in the running for a prize, which I draw periodically throughout the year. I was generously gifted a couple of prizes for the Make 9 2024 Mal from the wonderful ladies at 3 by the Sea Designs, and I am so excited to share those with you. The first is this gorgeous sock set. Now, when they sent me these goodies, they said I could keep something if I wanted to. And I'm so incredibly tempted to keep, especially this one. It's my favorite. But I've decided that I just want to gift them to you all. I may end up getting myself this set. I don't know. We'll see, because it's so beautiful. It's been really hard to give it up, but I really want to share the love with you all who have been participating in the Make 9 2024 Mal. So anyway, this gorgeous sock set, again by 3 by the Sea Designs, is called Tea in Wonderland for the main skein, and then the mini skein is called Stark Raven Mad. They're both on a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon fingering weight base, which is called the Sanibel base. They're gorgeous. And then they also sent along this beautiful Progress Keeper, this little cute pink sheep. So sweet. So this is going to be gifted to Linda at Wool Hobby. So congratulations to you, Linda. I was excited that you were drawn as one of the prize winners for the Make 9 2024 Mal. If you would please get in contact with me through a direct message on Instagram and let me know your first and last name and mailing. Well, I know your first name, your last name, and your mailing address. I would be so happy to get this off in the mail to you as soon as possible. And then the second gorgeous hank of yarn and Progress Keeper that was sent my way from 3 by the Sea Designs is called Blossoms Over Tokyo. And this one is on the Coquina base, which is another fingering weight, but this one is 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon. And it is also absolutely gorgeous. And this prize also gets another sheepy, this one in brown, or like a tan color really. And the winner of this one is Tammy at Tammy B on Instagram. Congratulations to you. Also, you just let me know your mailing address, your last name, and your mailing address, and I will be happy to get this in the mail to you as well. So thank you for those of you who have been continuing to join in the make-along as always, and a special thank you, a huge thank you to the ladies at 3 by the Sea Designs for gifting those beautiful prizes for those participants in the Mal. I always encourage you to continue to join in the make-along throughout the year. You can join at any time, and it is just a participatory make-along. You're not required to finish anything, and any craft is allowed. Also, whips are allowed, so please don't hesitate to join in that make-along continually throughout the year. I have a few finished objects to share with you all, the first of which I am wearing. I was able to finish the Ranunculus top that I was working on in the last episode. I shared my work in progress on this project, and it worked up really quickly. So this is a pattern by Midori Hirose, and it is knit in fingering weight yarn. I used Knit Picks Comfy Fingering in the Marlin colorway. That is a 75% Pima cotton, I believe it's called. Let me find my page. Yeah, 75% Pima cotton, 25% acrylic. And I've used it a couple of times for other tops, and I've really enjoyed working with this yarn in the past. It works especially well for summer tops because it's super lightweight, and with the majority of the content being a cotton fiber, it's very, you know, summer friendly. So I love working with this yarn. It only, oh, I forgot to weigh it. Did I? I don't think I did. It used less than 100 grams though. I didn't get a final weight on it, but I'll try to do that and insert it here on the screen because it was surprising how little it used. I still have 2 more skeins of this yarn, and so I was surprised that it only used, well, each of the skeins is 50 grams, so I still have over 100 grams of yarn to, for this, that I had originally, I didn't know what pattern I was going to make with this yarn, but I originally bought 4 50-gram skeins in order to make a summer top. Anyway, I only needed 2 of them. Let's see, I of course made a lot of modifications, which I normally do. I started this project on April 3rd and I finished it on April 20th. I used the recommended needles, which are US 10 6mm needles, although I was supposed to start with US 8 5mm needles for the ribbing, and I did not do that accidentally. I did cast on the with the instructions for the smaller neckline, but I used a German twisted cast on and cast on the number of stitches for the smaller neckline. I did the short row shaping in the back of the garment, but I skipped the short row shaping in the front of the garment because I didn't want that if you do the short row shaping that's included in the pattern in the front, it makes the neckline more of a boat neck, and I wanted mine to be more of a rounded neck. After I finished the yoke, I immediately split for sleeves, so I skipped the raglan section and went right into, went right from the yoke to the sleeve separation because I liked the way that it was fitting and I didn't want it to be too oversized. I had a bit of trial and error with a few different things. I'll just do it in the order that I did it. So I knit the body of, I'll stand up in a little bit so you can see how it's fitting now, but I just want to talk through what I did. I knit the body to a cropped length. I knit the body to 6 inches from the underarms before I knit a ribbing. And I did go down to the US 8 5mm needles for the ribbing, and I did ribbing for 1.5 inches. And then I did a tubular sewn bind off. So it was quite a cropped length. The ribbing wasn't laying really nicely. It was kind of rippling. It just wasn't sitting smooth. It was just like frilly kind of at the bottom. But I thought it might be good once I blocked it, so I left it be. And then I went to the sleeves and I just picked up the sleeve stitches and knit. All of the ribbing, by the way, is half twisted ribbing, so you knit through the back loop. And on the sleeves, I just picked up the stitches and I picked up 9 stitches under the arms and did the ribbing immediately, about for 1 inch. I can't quite remember how many rows I did, but I think it was like 8 rounds that I did on the sleeves. And I did a sewn tubular bind off for the sleeve cuff as well, but it turned out too tight, even though a tubular bind off is typically known to be a stretchier bind off. So I ripped that out and I decided to just do a regular bind off, but to go, I think I used a US 10 6mm needle and tried to do it really loosely, but it was still too tight. So I ended up using the Jenny's stretchy, super stretchy or surprisingly stretchy bind off on the sleeve cuffs, and that worked out really well. I blocked it, and I still, once it was finished blocking, I still wasn't happy with how the ribbing was on the bottom of the garment. It was still not laying nicely. It was just kind of like I said, kind of ripply and not laying flat. I watched an episode of a new to me knitting channel on YouTube, which is called Woozy by Celine, which I really have enjoyed watching her videos lately. And she recently made a Ranunculus top, and she just did a rolled hem at the, I think she did that on her sleeves and the bottom of her shirt, but I really liked how it laid on her with just a rolled hem at the bottom, so just knitting plain stockinette and not doing any ribbing. And so I thought I wanted to try that. I can't quite remember if she mentioned this or if I just thought of it, but I decided to, like I said, the body of the garment was knit using US 10 6mm needles, but when I ripped out the ribbing and picked up my stitches again, I stayed with the US 8 5mm needles, and I just knit plain stockinette for 1.5 inches, so that kind of made up the length that I had ripped out from the ribbing. And I had also decided after I blocked it that I wanted to add a little bit more length to the garment. And so after 1.5 inches of stockinette using the US 8 5mm needles, I then went down to a US 6 4mm needle so that I could just continue to tighten up the stitches at the bottom of the garment so it wouldn't flare too much at the bottom. So anyway, I used a US 6 4mm needles for another 1.5 inches of stockinette, and then I bound off loosely, regular bind off, but loose, but it wasn't loose enough. So I ripped that bind off, and I did the Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off for the bottom of the top as well. So I think that's all of the notes that I have, all of the information that I have to share with you about how I made this garment. And yeah, I'm really, really happy with how it turned out. I think it'll be a great layering piece. So I have it styled over a dress right now, which I've mentioned before. I typically wear a dress over leggings every day, and I think this is a great way to include some knitted items with my regular outfits. So I have it just over one of my dresses, and that works really well. But I have also tried it with skirts and a few pants, and I think it will work well with that too. So anyway, I'll stand up so you can get a better idea of how it looks on me. So here it is. As you can see, it's still quite a cropped fit, but I'm really happy with where it's sitting on me. I think it's really flattering, and it kind of, maybe it's because of the short row shaping, it seems like the back does kind of fall down a little bit lower than the front, which is great. I think that's wonderful. Turn around so you can see the back, and maybe you can see the short row shaping on the back there, where there's just a bit more stockinette above the yoke detailing. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. I just love the color, and I think it will be fun to have another summer top in my wardrobe that I can enjoy wearing. I really like how the rolled hem worked out. I'm pretty sure I've never finished a garment with a rolled hem, but I like how it worked out. So I'm happy with that too. All right, on to some other finished objects. I was able to finish this beautiful pair of socks that I've been working on for quite a while. I started these a couple of months ago. It took me a while to make these socks. I started them on February 13th, and I finished them on April 20th. I did 20 rounds of ribbing. I cast on 60 stitches using US 0.2mm needles. The yarn that I used is so beautiful. It was gifted to me by Dandelion and Dogwood after I did a test knit for Amy Loudon. It is the Candy Cane Peppermint Bark colorway, or sock set I should say, on the Fairy sock base, which is 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 5% stellina, and it came with 2 minis. One of them is this beautiful pink color that I added to the toes, and the other one matches the mint green color, and I'm actually using that in another project that I will show a little bit later. After the ribbing, I just did plain stockinette for 70 rounds. I did a slip stitch heel flap, and then just did plain stockinette for the majority of the foot until I got to 30 rounds before my toe decreases. And as I always do on my own socks, I added a slip stitch detail to the last 30 rounds of the ball of my foot. So that is very similar to what I would do on the heel flap. So it's slip one, knit one across only the bottom stitches of the sock for one round, and then on the next round I just knit all those stitches and I repeat those 2 rounds for a total of 30 rounds before I start my toe decreases, and that just gives a little bit of reinforcement to that section of my socks, which is where I typically wear holes in my socks most quickly. Then I switched to that beautiful pink color for a rounded toe, and I love how these turned out. They're so cute. I really like how the yarn micro striped, so I thought that was so fun. Oh, someone did ask me about this slip stitch detail that I add to the ball of my foot. When you do the slip stitches, it tightens up your knitting, and you can kind of tell when it's on the sock blocker here that the stitches on the bottom of the foot are kind of cinched in, and where these are more spread out. And they asked if I make any changes or adjustments to the length of my sock because of that. And I don't. I knit a total of 80 rounds for my foot. I wear a size 9.5 US shoe size, women's. And I don't make any adjustments to the length of the socks that I knit for myself when I add that detail. I find that even though it does cinch it up a little bit, it still fits my foot well with my regular number of rounds. So that's what works for me. I don't make any adjustments for that, but it certainly does cinch it up. It doesn't lay, flat, or you can just tell that it like cinches it in right here. So, but I don't feel that it makes a difference in the way that they fit my foot or my feet. I also finished another pair of socks that I was working on. I cast these on the exact same day as I cast on those socks. So I started these on also February 13th, and I finished these on April 19th. These are knit using some discontinued yarn from Lion brand called Penelope, and they are in the Siren colorway. It's a 75% superwash. Well, I shouldn't say that. 75% wool. I do believe it's superwash, but it wasn't clear on the label. And they're 25% polyamide. I again cast on 60 stitches, US 0.2mm needles, 20 rounds of ribbing. And I did 2x1 ribbing. So knit 2, purl 1. Plain stockinette, same exact thing as the other pair. Slip stitch heel flaps, plain stockinette for the foot until I got to 30 rounds before the toe decreases. Did that slip stitch detail again, and I didn't change the yarn at all for anything. I just stayed with that one color way for the entirety of the socks. And they're super fun and bright, and I'm glad they will be worn on my feet and not anywhere else, because I wouldn't wear them anywhere else, but I can handle bright things on my feet. So they're pretty wild, but they're fun. These were knit from, if you've watched before, you've seen it, of course, but it was kind of an odd yarn. It was kind of like a sock blank, but the yarn was knit into kind of a skinny strip. But anyway, I unraveled that yarn and knit from that. I did end up wet blocking these to try to smooth out the wrinkly yarn. I don't normally wet block my socks, but I did for these just to kind of straighten out the stitches a little bit. So I'm really happy with those as well. I also finished my last 2 modified Musselburgh hats. So I've been knitting several of these hats recently, and I believe this is, these are number 11 and 12, and these are going to be the last of these types of hats that I make in the near future. I've gone through the majority, I've gone through all of my worsted weight acrylic scraps that I didn't have another use for. I do have more acrylic yarn, worsted weight acrylic yarn that I have in my stash that I have designated to make blankets with, but I don't have any like leftovers left right now, so that's great. So I use the numbers from the Musselburgh pattern by Ysolda Teague, but I modify it, and basically I only knit half of the pattern. I start with casting on at the brim. The original Musselburgh hat has you cast on at the crown and increase, but I just use the numbers that I get to when I'm at my largest stitch count. I cast on that number of stitches. I use the loosest gauge that she provides in the pattern because I'm using worsted weight yarn here, and Ysolda Teague doesn't usually, the pattern is not designed to use worsted weight yarn. The largest gauge or largest yarn weight that she recommends is DK weight for this pattern. But I'm able to match her loosest gauge using worsted weight yarn and US 6 4mm needles, and I have cast on the number of stitches for the adult medium size. I did 2 by 2, so knit 2, purl 2 ribbing for 4.5 inches, and then I did plain stockinette for a total of 10 inches before I did the crown decreases that are in the pattern. So this one obviously is just in plain black. This was knit with Caron Simply Soft yarn in the black colorway. And then my last one I used up a lot of little scraps. So this one was done a little bit differently, but not a lot. I again cast on the number of stitches for the adult medium. Again, did 2 by 2 ribbing for 4.5 inches. This yarn, I don't know what it was. I don't even remember where I got it from. So I'm sorry about that if you gifted it to me. But I can't quite remember where I got that from. But it's super pretty pinky, purple, green colored yarn. And after the ribbing, I started using helical knitting to add in my last little scrap of that black yarn that I used in the last hat. And I could tell that my yarn was really running out at that point. I didn't have a lot left over. And so I decided to start the decreases a little bit sooner than I have on my other hats that I've been making recently. So this one I only knit to a total of 9 inches before I started doing the decreases, and I still ran out of yarn. So I added in a few more scraps here at the top. I don't know what either of those are either though. But I think it turned out really fun. And it still fits well, even though it's a little bit shorter. I do have not a huge head circumference, but it still fits really nicely. So I'm happy with that. I have made all of these hats to be donated, so I am excited to be able to donate 12 hats to, I haven't decided yet where I'm going to donate them to, but I will be happy to donate them to a place that can use them, hopefully. I have one more finished object to share with you all. I was able to finish another Rainbow Ripple Baby Blanket. I was working on this one last time I recorded an episode, and this one I made out of quite a few DK weight scraps that for the majority of them, I don't even know where I got them from. I don't know why I had them, because I never made a full, I did make a unicorn amigurumi with maybe this yarn a long time ago, several years ago. But a lot of these yarns, I was just like, I have no idea where these came from. But anyway, they worked up so beautifully in this pattern, so I'm super happy with that. This is a free pattern by Celeste Young, and I've made it so many times. I enjoy it so much. I used, I don't remember, let me look at what hook size I used. I used a 3.5mm hook. It is crocheted from the center out, and it's made using double crochet stitches, US terms, and I think it's very, very simple. It's just a 3-round repeat, and it's really memorizable, and I just enjoy how this pattern works up so much. I've made it with, well, last episode I showed you I made it with one yarn color that kind of was color changing, an ombre effect yarn, and I've made it with scraps before, and I love this pattern so much. It's definitely not the last time I'll make it. I'm sure I'll make many more in the future. I just enjoy working up this pattern so much. So I really love how this one turned out. I think it's so pretty, and it will of course be going into my stash. If you've watched before, you know I absolutely love crocheting baby blankets, and I just like keeping a stash of them, and I just enjoy making them so much, and then I enjoy gifting them whenever I have the chance. So that is, it feels so nice to use up scraps and make something beautiful and useful out of those scraps. These are all acrylic yarns as well. On to my works in progress now. I've added quite a bit of length to this Scrappy Ripple Blanket that I shared on my last episode. I've more than doubled it from what I showed you last time, so that's exciting. So there is a really cute bumblebee progress keeper in the middle here that my cousin Allie made for me. That's marking where I was last time I recorded. So you can see I've added quite a bit of length to this blanket. Can't quite see all of it, can you? I'll go like this so you can see it better, because the colors do change from one side to the other as I'm using up lots of little scraps. Some of them are bigger scraps, but a lot of them are pretty little. I am using up all of my little bits, little tiny scraps that I have left over of worsted weight yarn. There is one yarn in here that's not worsted weight. My son gave me, my son likes to crochet too, my youngest, and he has some yarn that my friend Tina has gifted to us, and then he's taken some of it. But anyway, he had this mint green color that was from Tina, and it was thinner than worsted weight, but I was able to hold it double and work a nice big section of that beautiful color in there as well. So that worked out really well as well. I'm using an H 5mm hook for this project. I'm not following a pattern. Will have notes in the description box about exactly what I am doing for my stitch count if you are interested in trying something similar. And I am just using up, I'm not doing any color management, I'm just using up every bit of yarn. And then I just crochet over all my ends, so I don't have a ton of ends to weave in. So I always crochet over my ends, almost always. There's not very many projects that I make where I don't weave in my ends. Either I use a Russian join method when I'm crocheting, or I just crochet over my ends, and in this case I'm just crocheting over my ends. So you can see I've just ended this one here, and when I start a new color I'll just slip it, I'll just do a slip stitch to join it, and then I'll just kind of tuck this down and go over it. I'll just crochet right over top of it. So that works well for me. And I really have enjoyed working on this project so much. But as you can see, the color scheme, even though I'm using scraps, I feel like the color scheme is quite cohesive, surprisingly. It's all, you know, neutrals and pastels pretty much. I mean, there are some bright colors in there, but I think everything goes really well at this point. So I'm at this point, now that it's, you know, it's pretty, you know, it's not halfway done yet. I want to make it like a throw size for our family. But it is pretty, you know, there's a big chunk, at least a third of it is done, I would say. So at this point, I don't want to add any like dark, like I wouldn't want to put black in this. I wouldn't want to put bright red in this or anything like that that would be really stark. I kind of want to keep with this color scheme that I'm going with so far. So I think I will try to do that as I continue working on this, as I get more worsted weight scraps to add into it. I think I might be a little bit particular about what colors I add into it. And I've really enjoyed working this pattern. So if I get some darker colors, maybe I'll start a dark colored ripple blanket like this as well. We'll see. But I've enjoyed this project so much. In fact, I've thought about, last time I shared with you that I had started a DK weight blanket using scraps as well that I'm not sure about, and I'm still not sure about it. I haven't touched it since I showed you last, but I can reach over here and grab it just to remind you if you didn't see last episode. But this is the one that I've started with some DK weight scraps that I'm just not sure about. I just don't know if I like how it's looking. It's a blanket that's worked in strips. Anyway, I've thought about maybe using this yarn to make another ripple blanket like that one because I enjoyed that process and I like how that looks. Even as scrappy as it is, I really like how that looks. So I've thought about ripping that DK weight one out and starting a ripple blanket with that, but I haven't 100% decided on that either. Okay, on to my other works in progress. My first one is being held in this bag that I sewed myself, and it is my triangle garter wrap, which is a free pattern by Purl, Soho, and I am making it using lace weight mohair held single. So that is a modification from the original pattern. I've just got this tiny little bit left of my second skein that I have added into this project. I am following the stitch count, I'm following the directions for the stitches for this project, but it is recommended to use fingering weight yarn for this project. And again, I'm using lace weight. And the needle size I'm using is US 5 3.75 millimeter needles. And I'm planning on eventually making this into a square instead of just a triangle. So I'm going to add in one more skein of yarn, 25-gram skein of yarn, and then I am going to start decreasing my stitches so that it'll eventually become a square. Anyway, the yarns I've put into it so far are both Knit Picks Aloft yarn. The first one is in the white colorway. The second one is in the plover colorway. I have one more skein of plover to add in. And this yarn is 72% Super Kid mohair, 28% silk. So here's my plover colorway. And then I'm going to be adding in some plain bare mohair. And I'll finish off the project with Aloft in the oat colorway. So I have a progress keeper on here marking where I was last time I shared this with you. So I've made a few inches of progress, which is a lot of work because there's a lot of stitches on here now. I extended my cord on my needles here so I could stretch it out, but it still won't completely stretch out, but it's getting rather large. I had thought maybe I would start decreasing already, but I decided that I'm going to go ahead and do as I originally thought and add in that one more skein to get it up to be a little bit bigger because I think it'll be more wearable. It's not bad right now, but I kind of wrapped it around me and decided that it would be a little bit better if it had a little more length to wrap it around a bit better. So anyway, I was happy to get through, almost through that second skein. And this is one of my projects from my Make 9 board for this year, so that's good to have that on the go. I have another one from my Make 9 board, and that's also being held in a project bag that I sewed myself. This is another free pattern by an Italian knitter, and it's called the Italian Winter, or An Italian Winter Shawl. And I have made a bit of progress on this one as well. I actually made, I knit more on this than what shows because I ended up ripping back a few inches because I had missed one of the I-cord edging stitches a few inches back from where I was last time. But that progress keeper is marking where I was last time, but I had to rip back to about here and re-knit that because I wanted to fix that mistake I had made. I am modifying this pattern a little bit too. The original pattern calls for you to use worsted or Aran weight, and I'm using fingering weight held double, so it's probably more of a DK weight. I'm using US 6 4mm needles for this one, I believe. Yes, that's right. And I'm also eliminating the eyelet sections that are included with the pattern. So in the original pattern, Francesca has little stripes of eyelet detailing every few inches, and I've eliminated that. I'm just knitting plain garter stitch, which is wonderful. The last shawl I shared with you is all in garter stitch too, so it's just really nice to have some easy projects on the go. this beautiful Progress Keeper was gifted to me by Tracy of Grizzly Knits. And I am holding the leftovers from my Ariana cardigan that I finished recently together to work up this shawl. And I just love how that's working. I love how it's looking. So fun. So all of these yarns, except for 2 of them, are Knit Picks Palette, which is fingering weight, 100% non-superwash Peruvian Highland wool. The first 2 yarns that I used are called Yarns Brunswick, but those are also non-superwash fingering weight, 100% virgin wool, I think the tag said. Anyway, I love how this one's coming along as well. So pretty. I'm almost done using this Brass Heather colorway. I'm also using the Rooibos Heather colorway right now. And the next color I'll be joining in is Aurora Heather. And I still have a few other colors in here. I'll give you a little peek at those. So I'm super excited to see how this will turn out in the end. It's fun to use up these scraps as well. I have 2 new works in progress to share with you. The first one is being held in another bag that I made myself. And this is just a pair of vanilla socks. It's just, I needed another pair of vanilla socks once I finished those other 2 pairs that I shared with you already. So I am planning to gift these to my mother-in-law, probably for, I don't know what, either her birthday or maybe Christmas. I don't know, we'll see. I'm just making them because she enjoys having hand knit socks. So I cast on 60 stitches again, US 0.2 millimeter needles. I did 2x1 ribbing for 20 rounds. And the yarn that I used for the ribbing was gifted to me by Nicole, one of the viewers of this channel. And it was dyed by Maker's Haven, but I don't know the colorway. But it is a 75-25 sock weight or fingering weight yarn. And then the main color that I'm using is called Paint Box Yarns Socks, and the color is number SS09, and I'm not sure about the colorway name, but it says on here Stripes Dreams, so maybe Dreams is the colorway number, I'm not exactly sure, but this is fingering weight, although I think the tag says 2 instead of 1. Usually fingering weight yarn is marked with a number 1, but this one's marked with a number 2, but it's a fingering weight because it's 100 grams for 426 yards. So it's 75% superwash wool and 25% polyamide. And it's obviously self-striping, but really tiny little stripes, but I like how that's working up. And I'm planning on using this contrast color for the heels as well. Maybe the toes, we'll see. So those are great to have on the go. It's kind of my only really easy transportable project. Even though I have lots of easy projects right now, they're a little bit bigger, so these are more easy to travel with. My last work in progress is in a new bag that I absolutely love. I won this from Emily Clausen of Salt City Knits. She was doing a knit along for her patterns, and since I test knitted the Dixie Creek cowl for her recently, I entered my finished object into her knit along, and I was able to win this beautiful bag, which was made by Susan of Delightful Works, and I absolutely love it. It's so sweet. So it has these adorable little sheep on it, and it's just perfect for spring. I love pink polka dot, and inside it's got pink gingham fabric. And I am doing another test knit for Emily. So this is a new shawl pattern that she has come up with, and it's called Stansbury. And it is designed to use a sock set, so a fingering weight sock set. I got a sock set from Emily's shop, which is Yarnberry. Yarnberry.com several years ago, and I've been hoarding it. And so I have decided to use it now to knit up this shawl. But I actually was only hoarding the 100-gram skein of yarn. I did use the little mini that came with this sock set in a different project. So I have a different mini. Well, the mini that I had from the Peppermint bark socks, it came along with this other second mini in this pretty mint color. And I'm going to be using that for my contrast color to go with this shawl. So anyway, the Stansbury shawl is quite a long crescent shape, but it's extra long. So it's nicely, I kind of get the idea that it's extra long. It's easily wearable, even though it's really only a 1 skein shawl. It does have that 20-gram mini added in too, but just a little over a 1 skein shawl project. So I've not gotten far into it yet, but it's coming along nicely. The main color that I'm using here is by Emily Clausen of Yarnberry, and it is called the Winter in the Big Woods. It was from that sock set. It is a 75-25, so 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon blend, fingering weight, and I just love the color variation and speckles in this yarn. It's so pretty. The majority of the shawl here is worked in stockinette stitch. There's just a few little garter ridges throughout the shawl, and then it's finished off. Oh, I'll try to put a picture in here if I can of Emily's sample. I think I can. It's finished off at the edging. You use the near the edging you use the mini skein, and then it's finished off with that beautiful, I'm not sure what to call it, the lace or I don't know how to describe that, but you can see the beautiful edging on it. I just love how that looks. It's so beautiful. So I'm excited to be working this up. I'm using US 6 4mm needles, 4mm needles, which are the recommended needle size that Emily recommended. She said that she was average to tight in her knitting, and I'm a very loose knitter, so she suggested that if you are a loose knitter that you go down a needle size. So I started off this project using a US 5 3.75mm set of needles, but I checked my gauge and my gauge was quite tight using those, so I just went up to a US 6 when I in this second section here. You can kind of see where I increased my needle size. Right here my stitches got looser. I hope that'll block out so it won't be too noticeable, but anyway, I thought I didn't want my gauge to be too tight, so I went up to the US 6, and I actually haven't remeasured my gauge since I did that, but I think it's probably better. I'll have to recheck my gauge and see if I'm more on target now. But I'm really enjoying how that's working up so far. It's a very, very easy pattern so far, and I am excited to see how it works up. So those are all of my works in progress. I think that's everything I have to share with you all. I hope that you enjoyed seeing what I've been working on lately, and I hope you all are enjoying the things that you're working on as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. Bye-bye.